I'm Coco and I have ideas. So let's talk about how Christianity functions as the sanctification of patriarchal social roles and the worship of supremacy. So specifically, we're going to look at how Christian culture conditions women to view the highest expression of femininity as a performance of martyrdom, where sacrificing self provides salvation to men, and the sacrifice of self is the only salvation available to women. Cool, let's get into it. So what salvation are women producing for men to consume by sacrificing their autonomy, individuality, and purpose when entering standards of marriage that require total submission? Long story short, they're saving men from most of the work of life and from having to experience consequences for their own poor behavior and encouraged narcissism. So Christian narratives around marriage are all about enforcing male narcissistic exploitation as the ideal standard for romantic partnership. It instills the expectation that two become one, and not in the cool Spice Girls kind of sexy way. Christian marriage is not two sovereign people entering a loving, committed relationship and commitment. No. It is about two incomplete people fusing together into one functional entity under male control. So in it, the man subsumes the woman as an appendage and a means of production within his own concept of self. So she is not separate. She is now a function of this man's desires and needs. And as a function and not a person, she loses all rights to dissent and all demands for recourse for violations against her. It's not healthy. So Christian theories of complementarianism are a big tool to accomplish this sanctification. Basically, what it says is that men and women are separate yet equal. God outlined very specific gender roles that we must perform, and ultimately it's good. It's all good. They're just separate. They're just different. And no, I mean, those roles always favor, empower, and profit men, and the gender role overburdens, subjugates women, and demolishes her individuality and empowerment. So no, it doesn't all even out in the end. But basically that idea is, complementarianism is selling the idea that a woman's sole purpose on earth is taking care of men as his lieutenant, right? He's number one always. You gotta prop that man up above you. He is the authority. But a woman's sole purpose is taking care of that man and making babies and raising them. The only righteous way to experience purpose and fulfillment as a woman is to be the machinery of meeting male needs and household needs without support and while having no needs of her own. That is the only way a woman can feel fulfilled, is being of use for men and households without compensation or recognition. Right? So that's ultimately the message. Your salvation as a woman is self-sacrifice, is martyring your own self to produce for a man to consume, to produce needs, and to produce within his self-concept. You are not whole anymore. You are within his self-concept, under his dominion. And that's not the foundation of love. That's the foundation of codependent scapegoating that is required to maintain narcissistic domination and extraction. Not good. And the purpose of all of this conditioning is to teach women that women have no legitimate independent needs outside of producing and performing for male consumption and male benefit. That is the standard of Christian marriage. Patriarchal marriages, but Christianity's sanctifying them, so that's where we're at today. So in my last video, linked below, we did a deep dive about deconstructing the patriarchal myth that women find purpose through marriage and relationships. Relationships cannot provide an individual with purpose. Relationships are wonderful. They are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things, but they are a form of connection. They are not a place to harvest purpose, right? And basically, purpose is individually created. Purpose exists outside of relationships. Purpose is the experience of developing individual potential. That is what purpose is. There are many wonderful things about relationships, but they cannot cultivate an individual's potential as their by design. Like, that's not what relationships can do. So serving another person's needs and desires and only knowing yourself through that service is essentially a form of self-sacrifice. You are sacrificing individual purpose by doing that. And it's not healthy, because that's going to ultimately lead to, no matter what, it's going to lead to patterns of enmeshment, and it's going to lead to intentional or unintentional, like, abusive cycles. Because if you were trying to harvest purpose from the existence of another person, you will have to, at times, manipulate and coercively control them to center yourself in their life, right? Because you are trying to center your presence in their life to harvest purpose, and you are centering how you believe they are perceiving you as your purpose. It's not healthy. It will lead to abusive enmeshment dynamics. But, like, women are conditioned to believe that this self-sacrifice is the highest form of purpose, and it's not. Those are all just patriarchal myths designed to seduce women into willingly entering these contracts of exploitation, thinking that they'll get something that they absolutely will not. Cool, so watch that last video for the deep dive. But those are all just conditioned patterns of narcissistic dynamics. And ultimately, narcissism is the opposite of love. It is domination for the purpose of extraction. Love is a practice of knowledge and care. Healthy relationships, love. Codependent relationships, weird and mesh stuff, narcissism. Let's go to love, baby. Yeah, so Christianity is devoted to sanctifying patriarchal narcissism, right? And you can check out my other videos for more deep dives about what patriarchy is structurally and culturally. Let's keep on rolling here. So complementarianism is assigning women the social role of being the sole infrastructure of care and producing human needs, right? That's why women are responsible for all knowledge and labor related to care, all domestic needs. You make the house, you feed the children, all clothes, everything. You are proactively managing and executing all labor related to meeting basic human needs, and the man is consuming that work without compensating you, without any reciprocity towards considering your needs, right? And so to become that infrastructure, you have to totally sacrifice self, because that is your only purpose, right? Anticipating and doing the work of meeting the needs of others. So then men are assigned the social role of receiving that labor, having all of his needs met, right? With no standards of participation or reciprocity. Her sacrifice is his profit. He is the owner and she is the machinery. Becoming the machinery is her salvation, and producing needs for him to consume is his salvation. That's like what these Christian ideals are trying to condition us into believing. And like, it goes to the heart of Christianity, right? Christian belief. Jesus died on the cross to give you salvation. You consume salvation from Jesus's willing sacrifice. Salvation is not something that an individual creates or embodies for themselves. Purpose is not something an individual creates or embodies for themselves, right? You consume salvation and purpose from the martyrdom and crucifixion of another. And it best be willing, right? And then, obviously women are on the other side of the coin of being crucified. So that's like where all these teachings are like growing from, right? This view of salvation comes externally from external sacrifice, another's crucifixion and sacrifice. That's all leading to these paths where you're teaching that women, your only role and value is to totally martyr the self to create for others to consume. And that saves, this total self-sacrifice. Men benefit so extraordinarily, right? So the standards of what you're providing to men as salvation, you're saving men from the work of maturing basic life skills like self-control, the ability to emotionally regulate, the effort of practicing love through knowledge and autonomous acts of care. and all labor related to meeting basic human needs for himself and for the family, right? Cooking, cleaning, being able to proactively care for children in a way that you can be trusted as a man to have a toddler in your care for 48 hours and not kill it. Like, they're offsetting a lot of labor there. And so ultimately what this does when women fulfill this role, right, it allows men to cosplay leadership and contribution because they're the total authority, right? He has total authority to deny and limit women's choices, and to like be empowered to criticize what he doesn't participate in. You know, he's gonna neg you about your cooking. Too much garlic, bah, 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 while not knowing how to fry an egg himself, right? And so all of that allows him to cosplay leadership and contribution and authority without actually having to do any of the work to develop the skills and perspectives to actually be a leader. And that's like at the heart of this. Male supremacy and the entitlement to extract from women while deflecting accountability for meeting any standards by scapegoating women, crucifying women, for male failures, for male immaturity, for destructive patterns, right? They just consume, consume, consume. And then men are taught to only know themselves and know their masculinity by their ability to dominate and consume from women. And that's not healthy because he's equally as codependent. He relies on that woman functionally for all this stuff, but fundamentally, to feel like a man, right? He relies on the woman performing inferiority and pretending that he's being a leader so he can consume and cosplay all of this without actually becoming a leader. It's not good. He can pretend he's a man by consuming her and like, that's my masculinity, is how much I can dominate her. And like, it's very unhealthy, and these are patterns of narcissistic abuse and enmeshment, and that's what Christianity is sanctifying as the ideal romantic standard. So yeah, that's why women are taught, like, you know, be his peace. What does that mean? Be his peace means absorb all of his malice, regulate his emotions for him. You need to be the shock absorbers for his life. You need to let him use your body to release his bad feelings. He needs to use your body as he desires, and that's how he self-regulates. None of that is healthy, and none of that prioritizes a woman's needs or autonomy in any way. But be his peace is be the shock absorbers, absorb all of his dysfunction, and that prevents the community from having to do so. Right? That prevents the man from facing accountability and consequences for his own behaviors as well. Right? And so the church conditions women that this is the only value they hold, and their only path to salvation is self-destruction to absorb this guy's dysfunction. And the church needs this from women because the church isn't here to actually invest in male development or maturity. The church isn't here to actually guide men through these processes of emotional maturation, of like going through the difficulties of developing basic life skills, self-control, self-direction, right? The church does not uphold any real standards of character or conduct that they require men to meet under consequence. No, 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 no. They deflect it all and scapegoat it onto women. That's why there are no real like mechanisms within the church for holding men accountable for the harm they cause behind closed doors. It's all about counseling women through shame to continue to perform being the shock absorbers and sacrificing self to just like keep that man regulated, do whatever you need to do. And then, you know, that saves the church and the community from having to confront him directly, having to confront these really entrenched male patterns of narcissistic abuse. They don't want to deal with it, so women must absorb it. And like that's also why the church promotes forgiveness as like the only available script, right? The church is so big on forgiveness. No matter the violations, a man can say the script of, "I'm sorry, Jesus, I repent, forgive me," and good. Nice, good work, buddy. Yeah, you come talk to the pastor 20 minutes every other week, and I think we're good. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter that you punched a wall and hurt a child. No, that's, God understands, right? So now, once again, he performed this script of forgiveness. It's the woman's job to do all the work of figuring out how to deal with him, even though there's been no repair made, and she just goes back to continuing to be his shock absorbers. Yeah. And then everyone gets to praise that man for being so strong that he repeated the script to avoid any real accountability. So strong. What a testimony. What a testimony. Right? Because the church is all about scapegoating and crucifying women instead of holding men accountable. Because it reflects patriarchy, and patriarchy is the culture of male narcissism. All right? And men refuse to hold each other accountable. And that is why, like, the church, like, isn't about accountability. They create structures where only men are allowed to be leaders, and then they don't hold each other accountable. Right? Because the purpose of going to church for men, Christian churches, it is not about, like, developing self and seeking to hold self accountable for spiritual growth and evolution. No, 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 no. They go to Christian churches to consume feeling pious and righteous without actually having to do any of the work or development to practice love, to practice leading through contribution, to practice leading amongst each other by enacting direct consequences for men who create harm. That the church is not about that. And that's fundamentally why sex abuse is such a massive systemic problem across all Christian denominations, right? Catholic churches, the Southern Baptist Conference, all of them. It doesn't matter. It is a systemic issue. And that's by design. If you preach that men are entitled to own women and pass judgment and use women, and that women must remain submissive and must remain silent no matter the abuse, well then of course you're structurally creating a system that just sanctifies predators and abusive behaviors. Because fundamentally the social role of the church is to launder depravity and exploitation into thin projections of morality and righteousness. And like, obviously, look at the Christian dedication to Trump. That man is a felon, convicted of SA, a deadbeat adulterer, a thief, and he only promises to do harm, and he is their real idol. He is their true idol. He represents their true values. And it's not in spite of his brutality, it's because of it. Because the purpose of Christian belief is manufacturing and policing the performance of patriarchal roles. That is why they teach that creation is punishment. And this is why the church invented, right? They invented a male God to do this. A God made in man's image, who hates and punishes creators, right? The church teaches that childbirth, the unique womanly ability to co-create life with God, they teach that that is a punishment, right? It's punishment for original sin, and women are required to give birth under male control and ownership to make up for that original sin, right? Timothy 2:15, Paul writes, "But women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety." Yeah, women will be saved by being a means of production under male control. Male seized women to seize population control, right? Subjugated, it's all about control, and it's about sanctifying this. And it's about disempowering women. And it drives me bananas. Yeah, right? So it's about seizing women's innate power to siphon it under male control for male profit, while simultaneously degrading women for the natural capacities to create. And teaching that creation is punishment, or like the work of evil or demons, overall, that whole thing is about instilling people with fear, right? To condition people to fear creating their own identities, to fear learning, to fear holding each other accountable within their own groups. No, you only look outside for accountability. You only project that judgment outside. You turn away when real abuse is happening inside the house. You look away. That's what it's teaching. The church teaches to fear anyone and anything that exists outside of their patriarchal social role expectations, where women are manufacturers owned by men, and men are entitled to do whatever they want. They have all of the power and no responsibility. No responsibility to anyone. And a man is defined by his ability to consume and extract from women. That's what the church is all about. They teach suspect thy neighbor, not love thy neighbor. And so the purpose of Christianity really is to condition people to fear living outside of the prescribed patriarchal social roles, and to fear and shame anyone who doesn't conform to being this very narrow role. And like the highest virtue of Christianity is enacting hell on earth for people who dare to create their own selves. outside of these narrow roles, right? That's why they target trans people. That's why they target gay people. You are creating an individual identity that is authentic to your own self. That's evil, because creation is evil. It's all about supremacy. I assign you who you are by virtue of your sex at birth. I assign you, and here's your list of how you have to be, how you have to perform. And if you think you get to create yourself, your goals, your identity outside of what I demand to receive from you, I have to create hell on earth for you, because that's the Lord's work. Do you see what I'm saying? It's all pretty dark. But ultimately, Christianity really is the worship of supremacy itself, right? You have to perform these roles. You are not a creator. You are not entitled to freedom of thought. You are not entitled to freedom of expression. You are it's all demonized. Free will is ultimately what they are demonizing, because it is the worship of supremacy itself. It is the worship of upholding social roles designed to force and artificially propagate male supremacy and the worship of supremacy for all. And that's what it is. So cool, thanks for watching. I'm gonna wrap it here. I'm Coco, I have ideas. Please like and subscribe for more weekly videos on stuff like this all the time. And also I have writings up over at my Substack for free, powerculturecoco.substack.com. And I'm on TikTok and Insta at Coco Has Ideas. But yeah, please let me know in the comments what you think. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next week.